all over the country. Greeting us from all over the country. It'd be great to give a shout out to where you are dialing in from, city, state, territory. We welcome all. We have a packed agenda. So for those of you who I have not met yet, my name is Meg and Sarah, and I am the director of AmeriCorps VISTA. We have a packed agenda today. Covering a lot of things. So I'm going to keep my kind of summary very brief. We've joined by two very special guests who I'll introduce momentarily to talk about the child tax credit, which is a huge deal for many of the people that we serve. Could not be more timely. Checks are going to begin to arrive tomorrow. So the fact that we have these guests from the White House is particularly momentous. I'm also going to provide a brief update on ARP and what it means for VISTA. Barbara and Andy from the VISTA training unit are going to walk through the new and amazing VISTA campus. And then we're going to ask a few poll questions to take your pulse around teleservice. So lots of things to get to. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad that you're here. And with that, I will introduce our guest speakers. I'm joined by two incredible leaders. The first is Deirdre Schiffling. Deirdre is the Advocacy Director for the Office of Policy, Strategy, and Outreach in the White House. Prior to this role, Deirdre was the founder and campaign director of Democracy for All 2020 Action, a national campaign committed to building power for the people and making government work for everyone. She also co-founded Supermajority, a women's political organization, alongside Cecile Richards, Ai-jen Poo, Alicia Garza, and many other amazing women. Prior to launching Democracy for All in 2021, Deirdre served as executive director of the Planned Parenthood Action Fund, as well as vice president of organizing, engagement, and campaigns for the Planned Parenthood Federation of America, where she spent nearly a decade leading organizing, electoral, and campaigns work. We are also joined by Cara DeFrias. She is a digital service expert with the U.S. Digital Service. Cara's background is a unique mix of private and public sector experience, including 4 years with TurboTax and an appointment to the first class of Presidential Innovation Fellows. In the latter, she served as an entrepreneur in residence, reimagining the relationship between the government and the people from a technology perspective. Cara was also director of UX for Vice President Biden in the White House, where she led the cancer moonshot work around cancer clinical trials. Two amazing people with incredible backgrounds and expertise who are also leading the efforts to make sure that everyone has what they need and knows what they need to know regarding the child tax credit. So with that, I will turn it over to Deirdre and Cara.
Great. Thank you so much, Meg. And it's such an honor to be with all of you today. This is Deirdre Schiffling, and I'm going to start us off on our child tax credit presentation, and then turn it over to Cara to walk through the non-filer portal, which we are hopeful that we can enlist your help with. So we are so grateful to be here with you. I'm just going to spend a minute on child tax credit. Next slide. But first, we want to give you some remarks from a special guest that we are bringing in with us via video, the Vice President, who wants to open us up here. So please play the video.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today and participating in this training. It is critical that we get the word out about the child tax credit, and we would not be able to do this work without you. With the expansion of the child tax credit, we are supporting our nation's working families. We are strengthening our nation's middle class, and we are helping to lift half of America's children who are living in poverty out of poverty. Just think about that. The impact of that will be historic, seismic even. And it will be felt not only by the children of today, it will be felt by families and communities and by our country for generations to come. And that is something to celebrate. And as we celebrate, let us also remember our work is not yet finished. We need to make sure American families know about this credit and how they can receive it. and I know you know this, but it bears repeating, if folks file taxes for 2019 or 2020 or a stimulus check, they do not have to do anything. They will get the child tax credit automatically. If they did not file taxes for 2019 or 2020 or a stimulus check, they do have to take action. They need to visit childtaxcredit.gov. I'm going to say that again, childtaxcredit.gov, and fill out a simple form. The President and I need your help to spread the word and to fight to make expansion of the child tax credit permanent. You know, after the President signed the American Rescue Plan into law, I said this: Americans will see what we did here, and they will feel the impact of this bill for generations to come. And that is certainly true. So thank you again for your partnership and for your leadership, and know that the President and I will never stop fighting for our children, for our families, and for our nation. Thank you, and take care.
Thank you. So very inspiring words from our Vice President about the importance of the child tax credit. And I just want to spend one more minute on that with you all and with this slide. So the child tax credit will help almost all families in our country, whether it's to pay for rent and food or to save for college. And we know from decades of research that when parents can afford to live, kids do better. They have better health outcomes. They have higher educational attainment. They have higher future earnings. They have lower stress. And so this is good for our whole society. It's good for kids. It's good for parents. It's good for families and communities. We know also that 40% of United States families can't afford an unexpected $400 expense. Just imagine that 40% of families in our country can't afford an unexpected $400 expense. Child tax credit gives families a little more breathing room. And lastly, child tax credit will help stabilize the economy. We have just collectively lived through the biggest recession of our lifetime. And thanks to the stimulus checks, which preceded the child tax credit, our economy is now becoming more and more stable, and we're on the upswing. Those stimulus checks boosted spending at all levels. They increased small business revenue. They stabilized families and communities, and they were essential to getting America back on track. The child tax credit will have a similar impact. So it's good for families, it's good for kids, it's essential for those families who are living paycheck to paycheck, and it's good for our economy as a whole. Next slide. So help is here. It was part of the American Rescue Plan, and it's coming online tomorrow. So tomorrow is the day when the first direct deposits and checks will go out. And we'll tell you more about what that's going to look like rolling out. But help is definitely here. And we want to make sure that families across the country know. They know about what the child tax credit is. They know why they're getting this payment into their checking account. They know where it came from. Next slide. So our goal, we have two goals for this. The first is to help build awareness and understanding of the child tax credit, which is sort of misnamed. A tax credit is something that is hard to understand what it is, in my view, for a regular person. It might be better to call it, cash for kids, or, something that's a little more direct. But what it is payments for kids that tens of millions of families are going to receive, and they're going to get it automatically. So we want to make sure that people understand, what is this money that we're receiving? Why are they getting it? And build public support for continuing the child tax credit for future years. President Biden did include an extension of the child tax credit in his American Families Plan through 2025. And we're hopeful that this becomes like a permanent part of payments that we give to families. So the first is building awareness, understanding, and public support of the CTC. Our second goal is to help engage the families who are eligible, but they have not yet filed taxes. And so they are not going to get the child tax credit unless they go to the non-filer portal that we set up to apply. So most families will just get this automatically and it will be a check in their account. A small group of families and those families who need it most will not get this automatically and need to get information about it and understand how to sign up. So those are our two goals. Next slide. So here's how the child tax credit works. The child tax credit for this year will be $3,600 total for every child under 6. So every child under 6 is eligible for $3,600. So that's an increase up from what it has been in the past of $2,000, and $3,000 total for every child who is ages 6 to 17 years old. All working families will get the full credit if they make under $150,000 a year for a couple, or $112,000 for a single family with children or a head of household. So that's the vast majority of families with kids in our country. People will receive half of their child tax credit in monthly payments from July, starting tomorrow, through December. $300 each month for every child under 6, and $250 each month for every child ages 6 to 17. And then they'll receive the second half when they file their taxes in 2022. So 85% of people will just receive this in their bank account starting tomorrow. $300 every month for each child under 6, $250 each month for every child 6 to 17. And they'll get half from now until December and half when they file their taxes. The vast majority also will get direct deposit. A small subset that the IRS does not have banking information for will receive a check in the mail. Next slide. So I think I just covered this for the tax filers. They're just going to get it automatically. Non-filers can still sign up. So we know there's about 15% of eligible families who didn't file taxes, either because they didn't make enough money to have to file taxes, or they are part of the cash economy and they're not filing taxes. So individuals and families who did not file taxes this year or last year, or did not register for any of the economic impact payments, can still sign up. And they can do that by going to childtaxcredit.gov and looking for the non-filer portal. And the non-filer portal is a way to sign up that is simpler than filing your taxes, more accessible and simpler. And Kara's going to talk more about how to do that. They will also get any stimulus checks that they're entitled to but haven't received because they're not in the IRS's system. So an added benefit to non-filers of signing up for the child tax credit is if they were entitled to stimulus payments that already went out and they haven't received them because of course they're not in the system, they will receive them once they sign up for the child tax credit. So families could receive a fairly significant amount of money over time if they're eligible. Next slide. And so President Biden's American Families Plan calls for extending this tax relief for years to come. This new child tax credit that is bigger and spread out month to month, which research shows is a better way to administer the benefit. There's a lot of benefits to giving people cash monthly, as opposed to at the end of the year or in one lump sum. This is only for this year. It's only part of the rescue plan. It's only happening for this year. We are trying to get it extended through 2025 and beyond. And so that's part of why we want to make sure that this year is very successful and we build a lot of support for the child tax credit. Next slide. So some ways to spread the word. You all are experts at spreading the word and reaching into communities. So these are some of our suggestions, but you probably have other ideas based on your knowledge of your communities and your expertise to spread the word. We are, again, trying to do two things. One is educate the public generally about how transformative the child tax credit is, especially for poor and working families. And second, really reach those non-filers who are not in the system and help them sign up via the non-filer portal. So you can organize webinars, you can host community events, raise awareness on social media, partner with school districts, education leaders. VISTA volunteers themselves are a huge resource that we believe could be transformative in terms of our ability to reach the non-filer community and the non-filer population that needs help signing up. And one thing I'll just say about this is that a number of research studies have shown that just educating the non-filer population about this benefit and that it exists is not sufficient to for them to actually sign up. So this non-filer population needs help in signing up. Either there's a language barrier, there's a trust barrier, there's an education barrier, there's a logistical barrier of, it's just hard to, make it through the steps and find the forms and all of this. So we really need partnership of trusted voices, trusted messengers in communities to reach those folks who are eligible but not signed up and help them walk through the non-filer portal to sign up. So we're looking for your help with both of these, both raising awareness generally and signing up the non-filer population. Next slide. We've created some flyers in English and Spanish and a bunch of other languages as well to just let folks know about the child tax credit. Help is here. Here's how it works. Here's how to sign up. So we would love your help in taking these flyers and making sure they make their way into public schools, grocery stores, WIC clinics, community health centers, pharmacies, anywhere that you think poor and working families are going to be is where we want these flyers to be. But again, a flyer by itself is not sufficient to sign up a non-filer. So it's good to raise awareness, but we also need organizations who can help walk non-filers through the process. Next slide. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Cara DeFrias, who is our digital expert and expert in the non-filer portal to walk through how to sign up non-filers.
Thank you so much, Deirdre. Thank you, everybody, for having us today. We are really excited to be talking to you about this critical, important work. And so what you're going to see through the presentation today is we have a number of times where we are telling folks what they need to sign up, and it's because we want to make sure they have everything before they sit down at their computer, because we don't want them to have to scramble and find something in the middle of the process. So we're telling folks set aside about 20 minutes to use the non-filer sign-up tool. They need a reliable mailing address with them, an email address, the children's social security numbers, their social security number, ITIN, and then bank account information. And that's if they want to receive their payments by direct deposit. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to walk us through the process and how to get to the non-filer portal. So if you've had the opportunity to visit childtaxcredit.gov, that will take you to the White House website, which is in Spanish and English. And it gives an overview of what the child tax credit is in context to the American Rescue Plan, along with the relief that it's providing for nearly all working families. And as Deirdre said earlier, that's $3,000 to $3,600 per child for nearly all working families. And on this website, we've also got more information around how it works, about how we want to extend it. And we also gave some cases of, Sam and Lee, who are bus drivers and electricians, and what it means to them. So if you click on that, you can read their story on the back side. And if you go further down on the page, you'll see the frequently asked questions, including, what is the child tax credit? How will it give me more help this year? And we really tried to think from the people's perspective, what would be the questions they would have? And then answering these questions in a very conversational tone that is something that you might overhear in a coffee shop. And then we talk about how to get your payments and what if I didn't file last year or the year before. So this is a great resource. Now, specifically to the non-filers, if I go back up, we have the sign up button here, which takes you to this webpage, the child tax credit for non-filers. Again, we really want to stress this, that it's not too late to sign up for the child tax credit payments. The first ones are supposed to start hitting tomorrow. A question we hear often is, well, what if I don't sign up in time? The good news is if you don't make the sign up for the first checks that are going out, the rest of the checks will be prorated through the end of 2021. And so from at this point to get to the non-filer portal, you just go right here, the non-filer sign up tool, which takes you to this page. The IRS talks again about who should use the tool, how it works. And again, like I said, we're going to repeat a couple times, what do you need? Now, before I go to the non-filer sign up tool, what I do want to show you is we have guides we put out both in English and Spanish on how to fill out the tool. And we're currently translating it into 4 other languages as well. We want to make this as accessible, as inclusive, and as equitable as possible. And so these guides literally take you step by step to what to do at each point in the process. If you go down to page here, here's the welcome, here's the screenshots. We include screenshots in here. Again, we tried to make it as simple as possible. And you'll see here, we've got step by step. And again, we also do it in Spanish, and we'll be doing it in 4 other languages as well. So let's go ahead and jump into the tool. So you click use the non-filer sign up tool. It'll take you to this page, gives you an overview of what to happen and what will happen. You click get started. And at that point, you're going to create an account. So you put your email address in, you create a user ID, phone number, and then your password. And when you click create account, that takes you over to the non-filer sign up tool itself. So you would indicate if you are single or married filing jointly. Put your name in this case, just for this demo, I put Jane Smith. I made up a social security number. I'm going to put your address in here. And then under standard deduction, again, a lot of these terminology use cases we actually talk about in the guide. In case people don't know what a standard deduction is, we talk about that in the help guide. And we'll be sharing those out with you after this call. Again, you can also go to childtaxcredit.gov. You would say if someone can claim you as a dependent or your spouse. This is the important part. This is the dependence part. So you would put in, I say I have a son, Tim Smith. You go to the drop down. This one really here, making sure that folks click qualifies for CTC. If you click on this button here, it'll tell you everything you need to know about whether or not your child qualifies for CTC. So make sure folks click that. The recovery rebate credit. So we talk about that. If they didn't get anything, they would put a 0 here. If they got some, they would put the rest. Again, we've got copy in the help guide that really makes this easily understandable because it can be a little much if you're not, a tax professional. And then a lot of people have indicated that they want to get their checks via direct deposit. That's the quickest way to get it. So they put in their checking account or their savings account along with the routing number and account number. In the help guide, we talk about what's the difference between the two and how to make sure you're putting the right numbers in. And then you click continue to step 2. And at that point, it'll take you right here. You fill out the personal verification, again, just following the information there, and then you do your electronic signature. So today's date, which was yesterday's date, a PIN that you create, your date of birth, and then your driver's license or state issued ID. They will get an email to whatever email they sent. They will verify that, come back in, and then simply continue to e-file. You'll fill out this CAPTCHA. I'm not going to hit submit because this is just a demo. But that is how you get through the non-filer sign-up tool. And again, we've got helper guides to help not only the folks filling it out, but if you're somebody helping someone fill it out, we've got those as well. So with that, I will throw it back to you, Meg.
Thank you so much, Kara and Deirdre. This is great. You are joined by well over 200 VISTA sponsors. So these are folks who host our VISTA members, most of whom give a year of service and some of whom do a summer term as well. There are great questions coming in. We probably are not going to have time for all of them, but I'm going to try to run through a couple of them. But I think before I do that, I just want to provide some context around why we're talking about this. By design, all VISTA projects are focused on low-income communities. We know that folks have a lot of questions, and also reaching those non-filers is going to be challenging, or could be challenging. And it's VISTA sponsors who have the community know-how and relationships and credibility and trust, along with their VISTAs, to be able to communicate this information, help connect people with resources, and make sure that they know about this incredibly valuable and important resource, so that those who need these resources the most actually get them. So that's why we're talking about this. We're also going to be doing a training, an optional training for all VISTAs serving in August, very similar to this one, so that folks kind of have a child tax credit 101. All right, we've got time for a few questions, Deirdre and Kara. First question, how will people know if they're already scheduled to receive the benefit? Do they just wait and see whether the money is coming into their bank account, or is there a place where they can go and check?
Both. Everybody who will receive the child tax credit has been notified by the IRS that they, via letter, snail mail, that they will receive some child tax credit and the likely amount that they will receive. So the IRS has sent a letter to everybody who they have in their system who is eligible, notifying them that this amount is coming and the amount that they are likely to get. And when they see their bank statement, it will say child tax credit next to the amount. Or I think it'll be an abbreviation, but it will be like an abbreviation that says child tax credit. There's also a different portal, not the non-filer portal, but a separate portal that is coming online, where people will be able to go and change their circumstances. So if they have another kid, or if they don't want to receive their payment monthly, they would rather have it in one lump sum later, they can make those changes in a change of circumstance portal that the IRS is also setting up. So those are the different ways that they will know what's happening with child tax credit.
That's great. And important to remind folks again, the vast majority of folks will automatically be getting it. And checks start to flow tomorrow, which is particularly exciting. All right, maybe one more question. There's quite a few questions around what happens if non-filers are missing something that they need in that list that you referenced, Kara. So it could be an email address. They don't have an email address. They don't have a bank account. Maybe they don't have a social security number for a child. What do they need to do at that point? And is there a path for them forward?
So if they don't have an email address, they should create one. And that's part of why we need, helpers to help non-filers have all the things that they need, create an email address if they need to. If they don't have a regular mailing address, or they're in a homeless shelter, there are special provisions made there to allow them to receive it. They do need the Social Security for the child. If they are not a citizen, they have an ITIN, they can put that in as well, but they do need those pieces of information. So maybe some of the issue here might be helping them gather those pieces of information or find them if they don't have them. And if they don't have a checking account, that's okay. They can get a check in the mail. They don't have to have a checking account. That's just if you want a direct deposit. Kara, is there anything else that you want to add in there?
Yeah, one of the questions, those were great answers, and thank you all for the great questions so far. One of the questions we get a lot also is, what if I don't have a permanent address? And what people can do is if they have a trusted person or an address that they frequent, so sometimes, like, just to repeat, like the homeless shelters or domestic violence shelters, they are allowed to put addresses like that. because we've also heard from folks who are affected by domestic violence, like they don't potentially want checks going to the home they've left. So those are also options.
Great. Last question, just because it's a particularly important one, and I know a large source of hesitancy on the part of some folks who do have some reluctance about using the non-filer portal. But how does this affect eligibility for other benefits and or services?
No one will lose eligibility for existing benefits or services based on receiving the child tax credit. So that is crystal clear from the government's standpoint, and it bears repeating because this question comes up all the time. No one will be penalized for receiving the child tax credit. It will not be counted towards eligibility for subsidized housing or other benefits like that. It will not impact people's existing access to benefits.
Great. Thank you so much, Deirdre and Kara. This is fantastic. And I so appreciate the engagement from all of our wonderful VISTA sponsors. Again, this is just the beginning of our conversations about the child tax credit, but we so appreciate you spending this time with us. We know that you need to go. It's a busy, busy time, particularly with checks starting to flow tomorrow. So thank you for all of your work, and we will continue to find ways to get you the resources that both Kara and Deirdre mentioned today, and just have this be an ongoing topic, because again, all of you are serving, living in community, and have relationships with folks that can benefit from this. So we all have a critically important role to play in the child tax credit. But thank you, Deirdre and Kara. We so appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
All righty. Well, this is a hard act to follow, and I know we didn't have a chance to answer all questions. We'll find ways to do that, and also to get you these really critically important materials. So again, this is a conversation that's beginning, not ending. I want to just briefly move us to talking about the ARP, though the child tax credit is an important piece of the American Rescue Plan, which was a piece of legislation passed this year. So it's all things ARP on this call today. But I do want to make sure for folks who weren't on kind of our budget briefing call that you have kind of the broad outline of how AmeriCorps VISTA is thinking about and using our ARP funds. So just as a brief recap, with ARP, AmeriCorps as an agency was awarded an additional $1 billion over the course of 3 years. A piece of that is $80 million that's specifically earmarked for AmeriCorps VISTA. And you see the language right here on the slide, basically open in terms of how those resources are used, but specifically calls out the desire to use the part of these funds to support a living allowance increase. Next slide. For VISTA, there are really 3 ways that we are using ARP funds, so that $80 million that I just referenced. First, we are increasing the living allowance for all eligible members. So every person who is serving as of August 15th. An additional member communication and materials will be coming to you, but it's important that everyone understands we are increasing the minimum living allowance from $13,000 to $15,002. We project that this will reach the majority, but not all VISTA members, because it is an increase in the minimum living allowance. But we currently project that it'll reach, along with our annual review of costs of living, that it'll reach about 88% of currently serving VISTA members will see an increase in their living allowance, because the vast majority of VISTAs are paid kind of in our lower pay tiers. So that's roughly about 7,200 members, and that goes into effect August 15th. So we wanted to make sure that you had that information before we communicate those exact details and timeline to your VISTAs who are serving. Second, and many of you have been a part of this already, as we surged our summer associates this summer by 1,000. So we grew our summer associate program from 2,000 to 3,000 to really address immediate needs in communities, specifically in the areas of public health, education loss, and food insecurity. And you all have done an incredible job using those extra resources very, very quickly. Finally, we will be expanding. So we will have, thanks to ARP dollars, additional MSYs, so additional VISTAs that we are going to prioritize reaching really high need communities. So constituencies that are facing generational poverty, and ideally using this as a way to ideally reach new communities and new constituencies and those who are in greatest need. Second, we will be expanding our food security initiative that was started under my predecessor. And the second phase will be looking for 3 to 4 new states or tribal governments to join that effort to really kind of share learnings and expertise kind of in a cohort model. Food security is a critical need right now. It's also a historical area of strength for VISTA. And we think that through this cohort model, we could even further kind of deepen the impact of the work, the great work that all of you are doing. So that is ARP in a very quick nutshell. We're going to have a chance for questions at the end of the call. So I am going to turn the next part of our call to talk about VISTA Campus. So with that, I'll turn it over to Barbara.
Great. Hey, thank you. Thank you so much, Meg. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so wonderful to see you online today. We're just going to take a few minutes to briefly walk through some of the key online resources for VISTA sponsors, including, of course, our new VISTA Campus. As you know, over the last couple of months, there have been some really major changes to the AmeriCorps agency website, AmeriCorps.gov, as well as the VISTA Campus has completely changed. And with all of that together, we know that can be really disorienting. So we wanted to, while we're here with you today, just take a few minutes to point out some of the resources that we know you need kind of constantly, that you really want to have at the tips of your fingers, and we want you to know where to find these resources quickly and when you need them. So that's what we're looking to do with today's brief show and tell. And with that, it's my pleasure to introduce and turn it over to Andy King. Andy is the senior training specialist with VISTA. He's also the manager of the VISTA Campus. And so he is the all-knowing VISTA Campus person on our team, and for your awareness. So with that, Andy, please take it away.
All right, thank you, Barbara, and thanks everyone for being here. A delight for me to be able to share with you a little information about the new lay of the land for resources that, as Barbara said, you rely on. So with the changes that we've made, the relaunching of our websites, it gave us an opportunity to organize VISTA resources and resources across all the AmeriCorps programs in a consistent way. And since VISTA is really the only of the AmeriCorps programs, the only one with a separate learning site, that meant that some of the resources that we previously housed on the VISTA campus are now housed on AmeriCorps.gov, and they're organized the same way they are for other AmeriCorps programs. So now, resources like the VISTA Sponsor Handbook and the Member Handbook, information on living allowance rates, e-grants and reporting instructions, all of those are housed on AmeriCorps.gov. And that allows the VISTA campus to focus again on its original intent. That is, as a training and connection site for members, leaders, supervisors, and sponsors. And so the campus is organized now in 2 sections, VISTA Training and VISTA Connect. VISTA Training is built in what's called a learning management system, and it tracks the user's progress automatically as they go. And it shows which elements they've completed and which ones they haven't. That's something we heard a lot from members that they wanted. And so, so that's a really important addition and an exciting enhancement. And then the VISTA Connect side provides discussion opportunities, much like the forums that we had on the previous site. So with that, let's take a quick tour of the site so that you can see real time how they're organized. All right, and I think now you should be seeing my screen. So this is the AmeriCorps.gov website. You may already be familiar with it. We're going to look here quickly first at the grantees and sponsors section, and then you know that we have a, whoops, I'm seeing a note here that you cannot see my screen. So let me try this one more time. I've gotten a little highlight.
Yep, you're good, Andy. I think we can see you.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Thank you for that confirmation, Barbara. All right, so here on the AmeriCorps.gov, under grantees and sponsors, you probably know that if you click VISTA sponsors, it takes you to this page where we've consolidated the resources that are most useful for you. Right here, just below the top, are links to the new campus, and we'll get there in just a minute. But if you scroll down a little bit further, you'll see this section called VISTA Sponsor Resources. A bunch of them just show up here. The nice thing is there's this handy little filter. And if you first click here on the filter, Access Program Handbook, and apply that, this will bring you to the VISTA Sponsor Handbook, which we know is a critical resource for you. Some other things that might be of interest here, Manage Members is where you'll see information on the living allowance rates that we just heard Meg talking about, as well as some of the other things around your members, like the outside employment form or relocation, teleservice, those kinds of things that you often access relating to your members. And then again, we have a section here for e-grants instructions, as well as for reporting instructions. So we know that those are helpful and often resourced for you. Back up here at the top, way in the right corner, the far upper right corner, is the search feature. So if you do the filter, you're not sure, you're not finding what you're looking for, you can always use the search. It's pretty powerful, and you'll easily find resources that way. One other thing to show you here on AmeriCorps.gov, under Members and Volunteers, we have this section for a page on Members in VISTA. And here on this page, start at the top again. If we scroll down a bit, again, these are links to the VISTA campus. Then there's a section on benefits. So this way, current members can find the information, but also prospective members. If someone's curious about, well, what's the difference between the benefits in VISTA and state and national programs, they can read here and learn more about it. And further down, almost near the bottom of the page, is where the member handbook is found. So there may be times when you need to access that, certainly your members will. So that is where the member handbook lives. Okay, so that's a quick look at what we have on AmeriCorps.gov. Now we want to move a little bit and show you just a few things on the VISTA campus. I mentioned that it's built in a learning management system and it can track your progress. The only way it can do that is if a user is logged in. So the website for the campus is learn.americorps.gov. I was on the slide a minute ago. And if when you get there, the first thing that you're asked to do is log in. So I've got my handy credentials in here already. So I've logged in, and it defaults to the training side of the campus. So VISTA training. And I'll show you the main menu is horizontally here just below that large image. We start out on the home screen. There's a catalog. This is where all the learning resources, all the coursework lives. There's a calendar that lists all of the upcoming webinars for members, for leaders, and for supervisors. And then here is a link for VISTA Connect, which is the forum, discussion forum side, and we'll look at that in just a moment. So if we take a look at the catalog here, if I scroll down a little, you can see each one of these blocks represents a course. We sometimes call it a learning path, but it's a specific course geared for a particular population. So right at the top is VISTA member orientation, which, as you know, the new members complete when they're starting service. There's one for leaders and for new sponsors as well down here. To start one of the trainings, if you haven't yet visited, you just click it and it will open up a little description page. And here you can subscribe to the training and then you can jump right in and begin. When you come to the catalog, it defaults to show all of the training for all of our audiences. But here on the left is a filter, so you could refine your search and say, as a VISTA sponsor, you could focus and filter down to see what's most relevant for you. Let's take a look here at VISTA member recruitment. So I'm going to subscribe here and join this training. And now below here you can see the different lessons that are part of this course. And right now I've just started, so my progress shows as pending, but when something is completed that gets replaced by a check mark, and then I'll know when I come back that I've finished it and I don't need to do that one again. All right, so back up here on our menu at the top, take a quick look at the calendar. Any place you see a dot is where something is scheduled. Down here you see the name of the event. If you click the name, you'll get a description page, and that's where you can register for the webinar. And then here on the VISTA Connect side is again where the discussions happen. It's organized a little bit differently from the other site. So here there's an overall community, and so it defaults to the general community page, and you can see here are posts from individuals who posted to the whole community, whether members or leaders or supervisors. And the menu for this site is, instead of being organized horizontally, is on this drop-down menu where it says Explore. And here I can look for different groups, and we have 3: leaders, supervisors, and members. So if I wanted to see topics and discussions specific to supervisors, I would come to this page, and I see this button here says Join. I haven't yet joined it. If you haven't been here, you would need to join as well. Click the button there and join group. And in just a second, it's going to allow me to see all of the topics that are here. So you can see my colleague Eric has been posting some things about upcoming webinars. So that's a quick look at the VISTA campus. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, and we'll go back to our presentation. And then I want to leave you with a few resources, a couple of takeaways that you might find useful. So first off, again, just kind of a recap about where you can find things like the sponsor handbook, health benefits, trainings, and Connect. So the handbook is on, the sponsor handbook that is on AmeriCorps.gov on the grantees and sponsors page. The VISTA member benefits, AmeriCorps.gov on the members page for VISTA members. And then the trainings and the discussion forums are there on learn.americorps.gov and connect.americorps.gov, which together make up what we still call the VISTA campus. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can also contact your regional portfolio manager at your regional office, or us directly here at vistatraining@cns.gov. So thanks for your attention here, and I will turn things back over to Meg.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Barbara. It's a great overview of an incredible tool. And I think what you can see is VISTA is a treasure trove of information, which is a blessing most of the time, but can be a curse when you're trying to navigate it. And so I think what you're going to see with the new VISTA campus is just much more streamlined and greater access to these great resources, which we know is so important. We know we still have more work to do. I really appreciate the additional feedback and comments in the chat, and Barbara and others have been rapidly responding. So keep the feedback coming. But I think what you'll see is just greater access for both you and our members, and also more opportunities and easier opportunities to find a sense of community with kind of fellow sponsors for members with other members. So this is work that is long-term and work that we're still committed to doing. Speaking of sponsors and members, all of you, we're having active conversations, probably like all of you, about what does the new normal look like in terms of service? And so we're having very rigorous conversations. There is no change in policy as of right now. The COVID FAQs that are posted, that we've directed folks to for over the last year, plus continue to stand. But we wanted to take this opportunity that of you being a captive audience to ask you some questions to inform kind of the new policy that we will be developing and issuing at a later date. So I'm going to turn over to Beth to lead us in a quick sponsor poll. I know it's been a packed call, but this is really helpful feedback. So I'm hoping that you can stay just a few more minutes with us. Beth?
Thanks, Meg. So we've got a lot of questions for you today. Our first question, VISTA members with my project are teleserving full-time, serving in person full-time, a combination of in-person and teleservice, or if there is some other way in which your members are serving at your project, you can add that to the chat. Looks like we have about 12% teleserving full-time. Looks like some numbers are still coming in. 16% serving in person. And about 75% who are a combination of in-person and teleservice. And the second question is the VISTA members with my project who are teleserve 1 to 2 days a week, or 3 to 4 days a week, or 5 days, but serve in person as needed, or teleserve full-time, no in-person service, or NA, meaning members are not teleserving at all. And looks like it's about 22 to 25% for individuals teleserving 1 to 2 days, 3 to 4 days, and 5 days a week, and only 10% are teleserving full time. So we have a few more questions on the next slide. So next question is, VISTA members with my project who are teleserving are located within commuting distance of our physical site, located remotely or other, and if you have an other, please post it in the chat. And moving forward, I want VISTA to return to pre-pandemic teleservice policy, episodic teleservice not to exceed 2 days per week, allow expanded teleservice more than 2 days per week but less than full-time, allow for full-time teleservice but require member service in person as needed, which means being within commuting distance, allow for full-time remote teleservice, which would mean full-time teleservice with no expectation of members serving in person at any time. And again, if there is something else that you would propose, you can put that in the chat.
And if I see some folks have a combination, which makes total sense, just go with a choice that represents the, the larger number of members. It may not be 100% of your members.
Okay, it looks like about 67% are located within commuting distance of the physical site. About 20% are located remotely. And then looks like about 13% want to return to pre-pandemic teleservice policy. 21% would like to allow for expanded teleservice. 46% would like to see full-time teleservice, but require some in-person as needed service. And then about 19% are choosing to allow for full-time remote teleservice with no expectations of members serving in person. And one more question. We have one more question for you today. And that is, if you have multiple VISTA members with your project, you would want teleservice to be applied the same to all members, regardless of the nature of the position, determined based on the nature of the position, meaning some members could be remote or full-time teleservice while others would need to report to the site, or this is not applicable or your project only has one member. Looks like a couple of people are still voting. Currently showing that 69% of folks would like to be able to determine that based on the nature of the position, meaning some members could serve remotely while others serve at the site. So thank you so much for answering these questions. This will be very helpful for us moving forward as we are reviewing our policies on teleservice. And with that, I will move it into any other questions that folks may have.
And I think, Beth, in the interest of time, because as I mentioned, we had a packed agenda. I want to have folks go ahead and fill out the survey to give feedback. We've gotten to a lot of the questions in the chat, thanks to Barbara and Andy and Eric and Carly and Beth. So this is really valuable information, and so we really appreciate it. There is a recording to this call, and we'll also kind of figure out the best way to get you links for these informations for what you need to make sure that you can do the work and have the impact that you have. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. We know with us, we know how busy you are, and just really appreciate your feedback, and most importantly, the work that you do hosting VISTAs all across this country. So we appreciate you and look forward to connecting with you on our next quarterly VISTA sponsor call. Take care, everyone.